Hi, it's Dorothy Guinan with Scrapbooking Quebec. In this video, I'm going to show how easy it is to create a DIY Halloween collection with material from your stash. I've been doing this for years and always loved my Halloween pages. They're fun, I use stash, and the pages really are one of a kind because there is no collection on the market like it. So you're about to see what I'll be using. It's a DIY collection I put together at the beginning of the month. I have products from Simple Stories, 49 in Market, Stampin' Up, and Vicki Boutin. And I'll talk all about these products throughout the process and list everything I use in the description box below. Also, I will put a link to the kit building video below as well. So let's get started and see what's on my desk. So you're going to see I already matted two photos in advance. I actually double matted them. And when I put this kit together at the beginning of the month, I started with this Simple Stories Simple Vintage Essentials collection. So that's that number paper that you see. That's what I'm starting with. Now I threw in orange paper. That's from 49 in Market. Orange and black is a classic Halloween color combo, and that's a laser cut lace paper from Stampin' Up. It's actually from a wedding collection, but it kind of makes me think of an old haunted house. Now I'm showing you some scraps of paper. Most of these are from 49 and Market, and what I did was I looked for orange, green, and purple. I find that a fantastic color combo. Those alphas are from Vicki Boutin's Print Shop collection, and in advance I used my tools and I cut out a bunch of embellishments, and here is my tool basket. I'm going to explain everything I used a bit later on in the process, and I will also talk about substitutes as well. The first thing I'm going to do is prepare my foundation page, and basically my foundation page is going to be 2/3, 1/3. So the top 2/3 of the page is going to have some layered printed papers, and the bottom third of the page is just going to be my foundation page, which is going to be an off-white. So you can see I did tear that black paper, and then I basically placed the black paper on top of the orange paper to use it as a guide to more or less tear along the same line. So I trimmed down that black paper. It's quite large, and then I trimmed another of that orange. I didn't need it as large because it's just going to be tucked under the black paper. Now what I want to do is add another layer between these two with that lace paper. So again, this is from Stampin' Up. It's an old one from a wedding collection. So at this point, I'm just coming in with my scissors. I quickly realize I have a bit of a problem here because sometimes when I snip, big chunks come out. So anyway, I'm just moving ahead, doing the best I can, and it is going to be longer than that orange paper, but it is going to be see-through as well. So obviously I don't need it that big, so I'm just going to come in with my scissors and cut off a piece, and I'll use what I have left over, probably on the coordinating page. So what I'm going to do basically is adhere these three layers together. What I'm not liking at this point is on the sides of that laser cut paper, there are two kind of solid lines. So I'm thinking of keeping them, but I'm not liking them. So I end up coming in with my scissors. You're gonna see I just kind of trim it off there. Again, trying not to have big chunks of this lace paper fall off. Anyway, it looks okay. It's going to be kind of imperfect anyway because it's all ripped. That's part of the look. Now I'm just adding some adhesive on top. I'm going to add more adhesive, adhere these three pieces together, and I'm going to adhere this big chunk to the top 2/3 of my foundation page. And basically at that top part, that's going to be where my photos will be placed a little bit later on. I'm already landed at the part for the embellishing, but this takes quite a bit of time. So the first thing I'm going to want to do, of course, is explain all of the tools that I used. Because, like I said, I don't have anything at this point that is Halloween-y, but it's already starting to look Halloween-y with the colors, of course, and as well as those alphas that I selected, which are really kind of funky. It kind of lends to that I don't know, a bit of a creepy feel possibly. But now what I want to do is show you what I cut out with my tools. So first of all, I do have two stamp sets here. I'm going to get to them later on. One of them is called Faded Type from Tim Holtz, and the other one is called Ghoulish Grunge from Stampin' Up. So what I did was I went to my tools and I found two leaf die sets. Now I find leaf dies fabulous to have in your stash. You can use them year round pretty much. So I'm showing you what I have here. Basically what I have is one collection came from the Hip Kit Club and another one which was called Stitched Leaves, I think. That one was from Stampin' Up. So I'm just showing you what I cut out there with the leaves. Now what I'm showing you are some pumpkins. Now I have a die set which is called Detailed Pumpkins from Stampin' Up. It's a retired stamp set. It's fabulous actually. Anyway, you don't need a pumpkin die set or a pumpkin punch to create Halloween pages because I'm going to show you how you can create them on your own with some pretty basic shapes. For me, if you were investing in tools, I would say leaf dies or punches, go for it all the way. Pumpkins, maybe not quite so much, unless you absolutely love pumpkins. What I'm showing you here is how I created a pumpkin with 3 ovals. So I used an oval punch, cut out 3 ovals, and you can see how I placed them, just kind of overlap them, and it has a pumpkin look about it. Then I used a leaf punch, simply punched out some leaves and tucked it at the top. And that's it, a really fun and easy pumpkin. So you don't need pumpkin dies or pumpkin punches to create Halloween pages. You really can simply use basic shapes. Now, back to the embellishing here. So I'm just kind of getting out all of my pieces. And my plan at this point is to have at least 2 embellishment clusters, but I end up going with 3. Now the main one will be in the bottom left corner. There's going to be another one just at the bottom right of that photo on the right. And eventually I put another cluster at the top left or just above that photo on the left. So I'm starting by creating the cluster at the bottom, just playing around with some pieces. So I started with that purple pumpkin. Then I'm coming in with some of those green wispy leaves, some of those other orange pumpkins that I placed on top. And then I'm going to grab a few other leaves as well and tuck them in and around. So I have these purple wispy pieces, and now I'm coming in with these orange leaves as well. Now, a lot of these pieces are really detailed, so they're kind of getting caught in each other. So I'm having a little bit of trouble here, but I do manage. Now, also what I want to do is create a cluster in that top area over on the right, basically the bottom right of the photo on the right. Now, on one of the pumpkins, I did do some journaling. So I'm thinking at this point, I'm going to put it in one of the clusters. And it does stay there for a while, but you're going to see in the end, I do end up dropping that pumpkin. I'm playing around with the title at this point. I'm not quite sure what to do with it because I'm finding it's not showing up anywhere. I tried it on the photo. There is wax paper, so that does kind of add a little bit of a barrier. But I'm worried I'm not going to see it. Anyway, I'm thinking I might put it in that cluster in the bottom left, but I'm not sure. I am showing you templates from 2 different stamp sets. These are both background stamp sets. This one with the spider web there is called Ghoulish Grunge from Stampin' Up, a really old one. And the other one is Faded Type from Tim Holtz. Both of them are really good background stamps. So what I did was I kind of keep these templates in the stamp box. That way when I'm auditioning what stamp to use, I can play around with them. In this case, I decided to go with the Stampin' Up one, the Ghoulish Grunge set, and I have that spider web there. I think it looks really, really cool. So I end up stamping it in 2 spots, so you can see me kind of lifting up that paper that I've already adhered. I'm going to have one of the spider webs kind of peeking out from underneath that, and then what I will do is stamp in the bottom left corner, and that's just going to add a base layer underneath my embellishment clusters. And you know, I don't have that much opportunity to use this spider web stamp, so it seems like the perfect opportunity today. So I'm quite thrilled to be using it. Now what I'm going to do is once again build that cluster at the bottom. And at one point I just kind of give up and I get out my adhesive and I start gluing it because, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these pieces are really, really detailed. So what's happening is they're getting caught in each other, and on top of it there's that lace peeking out from between those two layers at the top. That's also getting caught. The adhesive you see me using is called Sticky Specks. It's by Ecstasy Crafts, and basically it's great for what I'm doing here, adhering detailed pieces. That yellow paper you see when I lift that white paper, it's full of a stick, and basically you place your detailed piece on top of it and the adhesive kind of backs the detailed die cut. It's absolutely fabulous. So that's what I did for a lot of those wispy pieces. Then I came in with the pumpkins there, and I'm just using my regular adhesive. I definitely want some finishing touches here, and I probably will put my title there. But what I'm going to do right now is move on to the other clusters. So I start by adhering those two photos at the top 2/3 of the page. And I end up adhering the photo on the left as well, but later on that gets moved. When I got to this part of the process, I did have a lot of indecision. It just took me a long, long time. Anyway, that's because I didn't do a whole lot of planning before this video, so I'm just kind of winging it here. So I have my photos down at this point. Now what I'm going to do is start building a cluster over there on the right. So I'm moving in that photo on the right just a little bit to give myself a wider margin. And now I'm going to come in. So I start with those green leaves, once again using that Sticky Specks adhesive. Then I think I come in with the purple pumpkin at one point there, yes. And anyway, you can see what I'm doing. I'm doing the very same thing as I did on the bottom. Now at this point, I do adhere my journaling box, which is on a pumpkin, up in this cluster. And it does stay there for a while, but I don't like how it looks. And honestly, on that journaling box, all it basically says is Halloween, October 31st, 2022. So you're going to see I get rid of that later on, and I will add that date somewhere else. I moved the cluster over on the right a little bit up. It's at this point I'm starting to not like that journaling box. I'm starting to not like that cluster. Now I decide I'm going to adhere my title in that cluster on the bottom left. So you see me coming in with some liquid adhesive and I'm adhering it. But when I'm doing it, as I do it, and I don't make you watch all of this, I'm finding that my title is a little bit lost in that cluster. It's just not standing out as a title. So when I continue this off camera and come back, I don't know if you can tell on camera, but some of those alphas, not all of them, are popped up on foam adhesive, and it just stands out more as a title. So now you can see I'm working on that cluster over on the right, and I've removed the journaling box. I'm just moving a few pieces around, and what I end up doing is replacing it with just one of those general pumpkins, no words on top. What I will do at the end of this video is just simply take a roller date stamp and stamp the date, because that's all the real information that was there. So I don't really need a journaling box. Anyway, so you can see I'm continuing adhering all of these pieces, tucking a few more leaves in here and there. Now what I'm doing is ruffling up that black edge at the bottom. I do plan to do the same thing with the orange as well, but it's underneath that lacy paper, so I end up doing that off camera because it's just a little bit more tricky. And you can also see at this point I've kind of lifted that photo over on the left. I decide I want it a little bit further down. I'm getting out the scraps of that lacy paper, and I decide to add a little hint of that at the top of the photo. So I'm adding a little bit of adhesive there, and I end up coming in with my scissors once again and just trimming little bits and pieces. But again, you have to be really careful trimming that, because sometimes one snip can result in a big chunk of that lacy paper disappearing. Anyway, I add a little bit to the top. I am happy with that. I like to have something up there. I don't want it to be a big cluster like the other two. You can also see behind the photo, I added some scrap cardstock and I just trimmed a bit where it overlaps on top of that vertical photo. And the reason why I did that is because one photo overlaps the other. I didn't want to put foam adhesive behind the photo, but I just wanted the photo raised up a little bit. And sometimes I just use scrap cardstock for that. It just lifts it up a bit. What you see me doing right now is I am taking this gold ropey twine from Stampin' Up and I'm twisting it in through the embellishment cluster. So I started over at the bottom left and then basically twined it through the title and up to that cluster on the right. Now at this point, everything is getting caught. The lace paper, the lacy embellishments, but I do like the little bit of bling and the little bit of mess that that adds to it. So what I decide to do is use it. So I'm starting over there on the left and I put a little glue dot, kind of tucked it behind one of the more solid pieces, a leaf, and now I'm just kind of twisting it in and around the pumpkins and the leaves. I twisted it through the letter E there. I'm not going to make you watch all of it, but basically I continue up through that cluster over on the right and then finished it off underneath that photo on the right. I also added a bit of it to that cluster at the top as well. And now I'm coming in with a few finishing touches. So I added some leaves up there in the top cluster. And I have these small leaves that are basically pumpkin leaves that came from that pumpkin die set. So I'm tucking a few of those pieces in and around as well. I'm also coming in with some foam adhesive and just popping up the tips of some of those more solid leaves just to add a little bit more lift, texture, and interest to those embellishment clusters. But that is it. All I did off camera was stamp the date beneath the title, and I added one more pumpkin to that top cluster just to give it a little bit more weight. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd greatly appreciate a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would be thrilled if you did. And if you are a subscriber, thank you very, very much. Have a great day. I will see you soon on YouTube and happy Halloween. Bye-bye.